Hello and welcome. I'm Rosie Rees. And today I want to talk to you about our shadow side, our darkness. Every new moon, I find it's a really great time to come within and really look at what you've been dealing with over the past month. What lessons have you been learning? What shadow aspects to yourself have been rising up that you've had to face? What challenges? And so every new moon is a great time to take that time away from your partner, from your friends, from where you're living, and ideally find yourself a red tent, or a circle of women or a circle of friends who you can talk to. Around that new moon time, we feel a little bit more vulnerable than usual. We feel a bit of ickiness come up. We feel our old wounds surfacing, maybe some old patterns. It's almost like it's our monthly period coming. That's the time when the new moon kind of rattles all this around and brings up those old things that you don't really want to look at. And that's our shadow. We're often hiding our shadow. And, because it's not very pretty, it's often quite icky and embarrassing, and you don't want people to see that side of you. And so we can actually put a lot of energy into hiding it and masking it and not letting anyone see it. And since I have come into a relationship about 2 years ago, I've really had to face my shadow. As most of you would know, in a relationship, you have to be vulnerable. You have to show all of who you are, otherwise the relationship's not going to work. And so I've had to deal with some pretty big demons and slashing some dragons that I haven't had to do before. My shadow, or your shadow, everyone's shadow evolves and it changes shape. It morphs into different shadows over time. So, for example, 5 years ago, my shadow was very, very different to what my shadow is today. My shadow was a very heavy binge drinker. She smoked a lot of cigarettes. She slept around and looked for her self-worth in casual sex encounters. She was also pretty low in terms of self-worth and self-love. My shadow now is a little bit more about, putting myself out there and getting kind of fearful, getting a little scared. So my scared little girl comes out. It's a bit more about self-doubt. There's also elements of jealousy that come through, and neediness, being in a relationship. And they're parts that I do not like at all. I hate them. But what I've learned how to do is to actually learn to love them, or at least accept them. And so that's where the key is, self-acceptance of your shadow. Your shadow, I believe, is a little path, or a way of finding your gold. Often what has been the most painful for you in your life is where you're going to go and help other people. So, for example, I help women with their pelvic floor muscles. I haven't had too much trouble with that, but I really love empowering women to get tapped into their sexual energy, because I haven't always been, or I've been doing it in really unhealthy ways. Also, I'm a relationship coach, so from really quite messy relationships and breakups and abusive relationships, it has inspired me to go and help others maybe escape an abusive relationship, or to feel more empowered being single, etc. So from your deepest, darkest wounds, you often help people, that you find your purpose there. Not always, but it's a really big guiding path where your gold is. It's where your shadow is. So you've got to look into it. And it's a little bit scary. So I did some breakthrough shadow coaching with a woman called Kim Smith, who was a coach, or is a coach, through the Debbie Ford Institute. And she was incredible. She helped me accept when I had, had a drink or a cigarette, or had slept with someone that week, and it wasn't 3 yeses. It was pretty much 3 no's, but I did it anyway. And she said, can you love her anyway? Can you love and accept that part of you? Can you have that cigarette and just be okay with it? Because you know what? It was the guilt that came after the actions that was worse than the actual actions often. And I was really beating myself up, and I was feeling really, really bad about it. And she just got me to lean in with love a little and ask me, can I accept and love that side of me? Because often that side of you is actually just a little girl or a little boy who wasn't loved and wasn't shown how to love themselves, or their needs weren't met. So you'd have a tantrum, or you'd lean into some crutch that was easier, or to push it all down rather than face it, right? If we do go for a drink, if we do go for a cigarette, if we do have, invite someone over from Tinder, what are you suppressing? What are you pushing down? Maybe don't do that, or if you do it, can you just accept it and, not berate yourself for it? Or if you don't want to do it, maybe look at what you are trying to suppress. Because below that, that's the shadow, okay? So my shadow now is a little bit different. My shadow is more about, it's a bit more fearful. So I'm not suffering through any alcoholism, cigarettes, sleeping around. All of that I feel like I've faced, I've acknowledged, I've learned to love her, and I don't have those issues anymore at all. Not one bit. Now I'm in a relationship and I'm facing elements of, communication, vulnerability, jealousy, neediness, elements around financial stuff. There's so many other sides of me that have come up. Self-righteousness, anger, so many parts. And I've had to look at all those icky little places that I haven't actually had to face before. And it's been really difficult, but it's been very rewarding, because actually admitting to my partner that I suffer from jealousy and then I have this control streak through me, that was just mortifying, because I had never admitted it to myself, or I'd never experienced it to the extreme that I had with him. Okay, so it makes you face what you don't want to face, especially conscious relationships. So basically the shadow is like a beach ball. And if you try to push that beach ball underneath the water, it's going to pop back out in your face. It's going to rear its ugly head in some form at some stage if you don't face it and embrace it and learn to accept it. So ask yourself right now, what is your shadow? What is your darkness? What is the parts of you that you're hiding away from the world? What don't you want anyone to know? What are those parts? Really feel into it. It might be different to what you think it is. I was still telling myself I was an addict up until probably a few months ago. And then I said, well, I'm not an addict anymore. I might be addicted to drama sometimes. I'm a woman. But I'm certainly not addicted to anything, maybe coffee. But sometimes we tell ourselves the same old stories over and over again. But sometimes our shadow changes, and we've got to move with that. And see if you can learn to love her and embrace her just like you would a little child, just like you would your inner child. And this is Isis, by the way. She's come to say hi. She's the black cat, the black shadow cat. So on that note, really look into what your shadow is, what you're trying to hide from the world, and see if you can lean in with love. See if you can accept her for who she is or who he is. Because often it is that inner child in you that wasn't loved, that wasn't told she or he is enough. And now what you can do is tell that inner child that they are enough and that they are loved and that they don't need to play out anymore. And they don't need to be angry or be sad anymore. Go and rescue your shadow and bring him or her into the light. When we shine our light onto our shadow, it doesn't have any power over us anymore. So shine your light on your shadow, and your shadow won't have any power. It won't have any control over you, because you're admitting it, you're accepting it, and you've got nothing to hide. Because we all have the same shadow. We just have different elements of our shadow that impact us more. Okay? So just like we have masculine and feminine, yin and yang, we have light and dark. And you've got to love the whole thing. Or at least you've got to accept the whole thing And that is the key to self-love.